Ownership types. In this session we're going to look at the different types of business ownership that exist and how these can be used to make the best choice for your business organisation. So what is a business ownership type? One of the first choices that you'll face in your business is what sort of ownership type do you want? There tends to be 4 different choices of ownership type. Each one has its own advantages and its own drawbacks. So what are those 4 different types of ownership? And then let's look in more detail at them. We've got the following types of ownership that typically exist in business. You've got your sole trader, you have your partnership, you have a private limited company which has LTD at the end, and you have a public limited company which has PLC at the end. So let's now try and drill down into more detail at each type of ownership type, and by the end of this session you should understand what each of the ownership types is and the advantages and drawbacks from there. So let's start with the most easiest form of business ownership. That's a sole trader. Typically a sole trader is owned by one person. They get to make all of the decisions because they're the owner. They get to keep all the profits because they are the owner. They can work when they like, and they can go on holiday when they like because they are the owner. They get to make all the decisions. This is the simplest and easiest form of business ownership. You can do this now, either if you're in school or college. You can become a sole trader. Really, really simple to do. However, being a sole trader typically means that when you're ill, your business will stop operating. When you're on holiday, your business will stop operating. It could be harder to raise the financial capital to grow your business because you've only got yourself to invest in that company. You typically tend to be smaller in size, so sole traders tend to be small organisations operating in your local area. You can normally tell this when it has one name on the business, for example, so John's Butcher or Paul's Florist. And the owner has unlimited liability. Now we're going to look in more detail at what that word means. At this point now I should say something really, really important. A sole trader can employ someone if they wish to. They don't own the business, but they can employ people. So in theory, your business could continue when you're ill or on holiday. However, if you're employing John, the builder, then would you be happy when Mark turns up to do your building? You may have some questions, some doubts. So typically sole traders are all based around themselves and their own business. Now, unlimited liability, what does that mean? This is the X factor moment. This is the moment. This is when the owner of the business is responsible for all of the debts in the business. So if the business gets into debt and it can't pay them off, then the personal belongings of the owner can be sold until all the debts are being paid off. This means that you can lose your car, you can lose your house, you can lose anything that you own, because the way that the world works here in this sense, you are the business, all your assets belong to that business, and they can all be sold to pay off those debts. And that is known as unlimited liability. It is a serious risk and it's a real problem if you're going to run into debt. Not a problem if you're not going to run into debt. Remember, sole trader, nice and easy to set up. Here's a little task for you. Think about your local high street or town centre. Make a list of all the businesses that you think could be examples of sole traders. Now compare this list with your partner and discuss these with your teacher as a class. You may want to pause the video now. A partnership. This is the next form of business ownership. It is fairly simple and straightforward to understand because a partnership comprises of 2 to 50 partners. So unlike a sole trader, you have more wealth and more talent to be able to tap into, and everybody is a partner in the business. It is fairly easy to form a partnership. You just need to probably agree on what we call an article of association and an article of memorandum, which sets out the agreements and the requirements of all partners, so you know what's going to happen in the business on the advent of death. The business is owned by all the partners in the business. Everybody has an equal say in the business. It doesn't matter who invests the most. Everybody has an equal say. Every partner is equal. All partners share decision making. All the partners technically could have different skills, which means you can compete in different marketplaces, which means that you can tap into different areas. So unlike a sole trader where you may be limited on your skills base, in a partnership you may have somebody who's really good at marketing and somebody who's good at IT. and you can use their skills and channel them in a successful area. You can raise more capital because each person can invest some money, so hopefully you're going to invest equal amounts, but you can invest more money and grow bigger. And in theory, you can operate when a partner is ill or on holiday, because even though it's John and Paul's business, as long as Paul's there when John's away, people don't ask any questions, people don't mind, because you are a partnership, you work together. However, being a partnership means you have to share the profits. Now remember, that's only a weakness, typically, if you invest different amounts of money, which is possible, because you have to split them equally. So you've got to split the profits equally, even though you may theoretically have invested different amounts of money. It gets more complex in that sense. You have less control of the business, you have to delegate and discuss, you have to agree on things. If you have a disagreement, then theoretically, if one partner was to leave the business, you're forced to shut it down and start all over again. If one partner was to die, theoretically, you have to shut the partnership down and start all over again. So it carries great potential for hazards here, and if you have a fallout, you've got to ensure that the person doesn't leave. You don't want a partner to leave, because that means you have to start all over again. Normal partners all have unlimited liability, and hopefully, as you remember, unlimited liability means every single partner is responsible for the debts of the business. Every single partner has to be responsible for the debts and be able to sell their assets to pay for those debts. Now the problem with the partnership is that they tend to go after the partner with the most money first. So they will chase the partner who's got the most money and the most assets, make them sell their assets and their belongings, and then they'll work their way down the line till they get the money back. It's not the responsibility of the people you owe money to choose to work out to split it equally. They'll probably just go after the person with the most money, get their money back as quick as possible, and that's not their problem. Also, if your partner does a run into Spain or another country, for example, and you're left with a debt, well, you have to pay it off. That's the way it works. You are jointly responsible. It's not the problem of the person who owes them money, is trying to collect the money for the fact that you're going to have to run away. You've got to pay it. You can sort it out afterwards. You can sue them yourself. That's not, that's not their problem. So those are the risks of a partnership and unlimited liability. So your little task: think about your local high street or town centre. Make a list of all the examples of businesses which could be partnerships. Now compare this list with your partner and discuss it with your class teacher. You may want to pause the video now. Incorporation. Some people don't like unlimited liability that comes with being a business, so they look to set up a company. Now a company is a separate entity. This means that the company becomes like a person. It doesn't have an owner, it has shareholders. You buy a share in it. So see that little cute little baby on there? That baby is like a company. That's like JCB or Marks and Spencer's, and you're buying a share in there. You're buying an arm, you're buying a leg. Whoever buys the biggest part, like the head, gets the most say. And that is because it's a person. You have set up a person. Okay, there's two different types of incorporation. You've got private limited company, which is an LTD, and you've got a public limited company, which is a PLC. Now, LTDs, private limited companies, these can only sell their shares privately. This means that the company has to choose who they want to buy shares in their business. So JCB is an example of this. Mr. Bamford can choose who buys shares in his organisation, whereas a PLC can sell their shares publicly on the stock market. An advantage to this means that they can sell the shares anywhere they choose, and they can get more money in from potential shareholders. Good example, Marks and Spencer's. But you have to consider that when you sell your shares anywhere, and anybody can buy them, you can be taken over. Because remember, whoever owns the most shares, the largest part of that business, that entity, that baby we talked about, they control the business. So let's have a look at the benefits of incorporation. Well, if you become incorporated, you tend to have the ability to access increased levels of capital, because selling shares means you can raise more money, because they have to give you money to buy a share. That money that you raise you can then use to grow your business, and it's free money, unlike something you get from the bank where you have to pay interest on it. It tends to give you the ability to grow in size, so PLCs and LTDs tend to be large organisations who we know more of. And of course, you tend to have an ability to sell shares, and selling shares means that it's not part of you as a business. So you've got rid of that liability risk. You've got unlimited liability. You've now cashed it away. You buy shares in your company, and in the future, when you want to get rid of it, you can sell it off. So you're not selling off John's painting and decorating. You're selling off a large painting and decorating company, and everything's fantastic. Limited liability. When you become a company, all shareholders have limited liability. Now this means that if something goes wrong, the shareholders only lose the money they invested in the business and not their own personal belongings. Their level of risk, their level of liability is limited to their investment. Because remember, it's a separate entity, it's a separate baby. We are actually theoretically seeing the baby go bankrupt, so we only lose what we bought in there. So we lose our head, or we lose our leg or our arm that we own. That goes, that's all that goes. But our car, our house, everything we own, they can't touch it because we only lose what we invest in the business. Limited liability, limited levels of risk. And that's what you get when you incorporate and become a company, so a public limited company or a private limited company. Okay, a little task for you. Think about your local area. Make a list of all the different companies in your local area that you think are PLCs or LTDs. Then try and categorise them into limited companies and public limited companies, so private limited companies, public limited companies. Now compare this list with a partner and then discuss them with your class teacher. You may want to pause the video now while you do that. Okay, that's it. You should now have an understanding of the different types of business ownership that exist. You should be able to define and explain the advantages and drawbacks of each of the different types of ownership. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at BeeBusinessBee and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, you can tweet me any areas of business you want me to cover in the future, and visit my all singing and dancing and buzzing website, BeeBusinessBee.co.uk.